Welcome everyone to the April 29th meeting of the Long Range Vineyard Transportation Task Force. I'd like to inform everyone that the Steamship Authority is making an audio and video recording of today's meeting. And if there is anyone else making a recording of today's meeting, please identify yourself by pressing the raise your hand icon, or if you are joining by phone, pressing *9 on your keypad. And when you're recognized, please state your name for the record. I'd also like to state that Steve Beatty of MVTV is making a recording of this meeting as well. No one else has indicated, so I'm assuming no one else is making a recording. In response to Governor Baker's executive orders concerning the necessity to conduct public meetings in line with social distancing guidelines during the current state of emergency involving the COVID-19 pandemic, all task force members are participating remotely in today's meeting because their physical attendances today would be unreasonably difficult. All task force members are participating in the meeting by the Zoom video conferencing app, and all members will be clearly audible to each other. And any votes we take will also be by roll call vote. Today, we are privileged to have a presentation on the Martha's Vineyard Food Waste Initiative to develop a large-scale composting facility on the island. With us today is Eunice Youmans, the Food Waste Initiative Director of the Island Grown Initiative, Don Hatch, the Director of the Martha's Vineyard Refuse Disposal and Resource Recovery District, Adam Turner, the Executive Director of the Martha's Vineyard Commission, Graham Durovich, the Recycling Solid Waste Coordinator of the Nantucket Department of Public Works, and Greg Carroll, the Principal of Bruno's Roll-Off, Inc.
Steve, can you bring Joe in? He's over on the attendee side.
Thank you. Someone has to, there he is. More. Promoting to panelist. Yes, I'm getting better at this. Mm-hmm. All right, and so I am going to turn it over to Eunice and let her start. Oh, there's the chat, okay. Let her start the presentation if that's all right with you, Eunice. Thank you for being
here. All right, thanks. I'm so happy to be here. I'm gonna share my screen and hopefully this will work out. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, so I'm Eunice. I lead the Food Waste Initiative on Martha's Vineyard, and the Food Waste Initiative is really a group of different organizations, nonprofits, business people, and citizens and public officials around Martha's Vineyard that are committed to a 50% reduction in food waste by 2030. So SAIL-MV is a member, the Vineyard Conservation Society, Island Grown Initiative, and the list goes on and on. So the #1 export of Martha's Vineyard is garbage, about 19,000 tons of solid waste. This is not including construction waste, is exported off island. Of that, about 6,500 tons is food that has been grown, processed, and transported to or around the island, only to be exported back off island as waste. In 2020, it cost the island about $740,000 to transport and dispose of this organic waste in landfills off island. And according to the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection, there's an organic mandate, a waste ban, and they estimate that about 2,240 tons of food waste, that's about 173 garbage trucks full, are exported rather than recycled, and so they should be recycled. So these are illegally disposed of currently. So the reason people care about food waste is it's a significant driver of greenhouse gas emissions and climate change. So in 2014, landfill gas from food waste emitted the equivalent of about 163 million tons of carbon dioxide. That's about the yearly emissions of about 31 million cars. So exporting food waste from Martha's Vineyard, it's expensive, it's wasteful, it's harmful, it's illegal. We estimate between 2025 and 2040, the island will spend about $19.4 million to export food waste. About 37,000 cars will be displaced on the steamship by about 9,000 trucks of food waste out and bulk compost in. And we'll have about 33,000 tons of food waste that we are mandated to recycle on island rather than export. Lastly, as an island on the forefront of climate change, we can't afford to be emitting additional greenhouse gases. So fortunately, islanders have been working on this for decades. So in 2009, the Martha's Vineyard Commission's Island Plan recognized the great expense of exporting waste off island and recommended converting waste into useful resources with an integrated island-wide program of waste management. Their recommendations included a large-scale composting facility to transform wasted food into a needed island commodity. In October of 2014, the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection banned the disposal of commercial organic wastes by businesses and institutions that dispose of 1 ton or more of these materials any week of the year. It could be only 1 week of the year and you're subject for the entire year. The ban is expected to be lowered to half-ton producers in the fall of 2021, so that's right around the corner. And MassDP expects that will double the amount of food waste that it's mandated to recycle rather than put in the waste stream. In response to the ban, a group of concerned islanders with support and funding from the Martha's Vineyard Vision Fellowship convened the Organics Committee to identify an island response to the Massachusetts organics ban. Following the recommendations of the committee, a food waste pickup and composting pilot, Island Food Rescue, was launched in 2016, resulting in 17 tons of food waste recycled into compost. By 2019, IFR was collected and processed 360 tons of food waste from 40 island businesses and institutions and sold 160 cubic yards of compost. So this is our food waste collection truck. You know, the pilot program was really meant to prove the financial viability of a compost business on the island. So we've proven there's both a collection market as well as a compost sales market with our program. So it's not just us, it's not just nonprofits and educational groups. We have Bruno's Roll-Off. Greg is here now. He's sort of a part of our program. So Bruno's Roll-Off just took over the collection piece of the organics program. And as this program is scaled up, Keen's Excavation has agreed to pay for uncured compost and truck it back to their site for curing and sales. So we know if we process food waste on island, it's profitable, sustainable, and climate smart. If we processed 4,000 tons of food waste per year between 2025 and 2040, we suspect we could collect 5.8 million in additional revenue in tipping fees and compost sales. We would save 11.2 million in export and disposal costs, and about 37,000 more cars would fit onto the steamship. On top of that, we could enrich and restore island soils with about 60,000 cubic yards of island-made compost. And the other benefit, there's a double climate benefit of recycling food waste into compost, and the double benefit is you stop emitting greenhouse gas emissions from the wasted food, but on top of that, composted soils absorb exponentially more carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and store it in the soils. So it's a double climate benefit. In 2020, the third in a series of reports commissioned by the committee to study the issues and opportunities around food waste outlined the specifications and estimated all-in capital costs for an in-vessel drum to compost all island food waste at about $9.8 million. The Martha's Vineyard Refuse District in Edgartown has an expansion plan in place. It's approved by the 4 towns in the MVRD district and the Martha's Vineyard Commission to provide a location for an in-vessel drum. They're awaiting final approval from MassDEP. But we have a lot of challenges ahead of us. So there's no question that the most economical approach to waste management on island is a 6-town waste system. And while we can demonstrate significant savings and additional revenue if the island stops exporting food waste. It's harder to make that case by individual town, so on the individual town budget level, and that's the case for lots of different reasons. And one of the other reasons is the majority of the island's waste, about 15,000 tons, is not characterized as municipal waste. So our recommendations today, we're looking to the key to scaling food waste separation is mandating food waste separation, as they have done in Hamilton, Massachusetts. That was done through their board of selectmen. They have one board of selectmen. Another way to do it is through the Board of Health, and that's to mandate hauler regulations, meaning if a hauler is picking up, they are required to sort recyclables, solid waste, and food waste. The other thing is we're sort of working to identify and solicit investors for a nonprofit or for-profit entity to pursue the food waste processing business on island. Or we could consider bidding out the space for an off-island entity to invest, manage, and operate. The last thing is all along we have assumed that there was a financial incentive for the towns to invest in a system at scale. And when we sort of dug down into the budgets, we realized that wasn't the case. So a $9.8 million price tag is a challenge at any time. It's even more of a challenge now, and particularly on island. So now we're sort of thinking about returning to one of our original ideas back in 2016, which is a sort of decentralized system where we have satellite composting operations. So we have a system that's working in place at Island Grown Farm Hub that can process about 1,000 tons of food waste a year. So if we just copied what the footprint that we have there and had it maybe at Morning Glory Farm, who's expressed interest in this, and other farms around the island, that we could kind of have satellite systems. And those systems, probably the all-in capital cost for what's needed for a smaller scale composting system is, just under $1 million, so $750,000 to $1 million. So it's beneficial to sort of break it up and have sort of smaller pieces, because you're not triggering all of the big environmental regulations that are required at the Martha's Vineyard Refuse District, which is already a regulated level of regulation. So lastly, I just want to urge you all to recycle your own food waste, and for the Steamship Authority to recycle your waste. We could pick it up for you. We have a partner in Falmouth that we could connect you with to recycle the food waste there. And all Martha's Vineyard residents and visitors can drop off food waste for free at Island Grown Farm. They can also drop for free for a little bit longer at all the island's transfer stations except Aquina. So stay tuned, and I'm happy to give you a compost bucket. And that's where my presentation ends. Any questions? Or do you want to go right to Graham? I'm not sure, Steve, and how you want to do this.
Why don't we do Graham, unless someone has a question beforehand? Graham will give us an overview of Nantucket's operation. John, if you have to take yourself off mute.
Eunice, it's good to meet you. Have you or you or yourself or Greg Carroll been able to equate how many trucks actually carry that waste off island every year?
Yeah, I got that number directly from Greg. Greg, what was that number again? It was like 600 something, 300 something one way.
What was the, he wanted to know how many
slide.
or the cost?
How many trucks? How many trucks?
carry?
6,500 tons of.
I guess you average about, I don't have it off the top of my head, but they average 30 tons a truckload. And then projection is, correct me if I'm right, Eunice, but about 40% of what goes off today could be part of this program down the road.
That's right. So actually the numbers that Greg and I worked out last week are, it's 432 trucks taking the place of 2,000 and change cars on the steamship to export food waste and then import bulk compost, because we also import about 5,000 cubic yards of bulk compost. And that doesn't even include the bagged compost.
Got it. Thank you.
All right. There are no more questions. We'll go on to Eunice. I think I am sharing my screen. She gave me her PowerPoint earlier. So wish me luck, everyone.
Thank you. Yeah, internet's not been too stable over here on the island.
Okay. All right.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. I'm delighted to join this conversation, and it's great to hear you all talking about this and thinking about this aspect. So I'm going to provide you a bit of an overview of, our system here on Nantucket, as well as kind of what we're shipping off with you all and what we're not. We can go to the next slide, please. So to start, before I get into, the system for managing waste, I want to start with the bigger picture of our approach to solid waste here on Nantucket, which is guided by the Select Board's aspirational statement, essentially that people on Nantucket share responsibility for our island's sustainability towards resiliency. And we recognize our job as stewards of the natural environment. And there's also an equity aspect to this as well. And that kind of drives what we do currently, as well as our long-term planning as well. Next slide, please. And we'll start with recyclable waste. We do ship all our recyclables off. And so we have source separated recyclables here at Nantucket. We have shipping boxes, kind of, cardboard recycling, plastics, tin, aluminum, and glass actually stays here on island. It's crushed and used as road base or for a daily cover for our landfill. So we actually have a landfill here on Nantucket, and I'll get into a little bit more about that in a second. But these are the recyclables that stay. You can go to the next slide, thanks. That go off the island. And here you can see the sorting room. So the recyclables go through the sorting room and are picked through. It's kind of an archaic medieval system compared to how recycling is done these days. I don't know if any of you have had an opportunity to tour what happens off island at these massive facilities. But this is what we do here still in Nantucket. And it's baled, and then those bales are shipped off in Cape Cod Express trucks. And so, yeah, if we go to the next slide, it's glass, and I kind of mentioned what we do with glass. So that does stay here on island, and that's a huge weight, that we're not shipping off on the boat. And interestingly, we're looking a lot into data, and in the summer, when all the boat traffic is, we see this massive increase of glass tonnages than we do in the off season. That's disproportionate to the population and other waste streams and recyclables, in part because people switch to drinking, beer on the beach, and all the summer people are drinking a lot of alcohol, as well as year-rounders, I'm sure, as well. So it's kind of interesting to look at that aspect as well. So now if we get to the compostable waste, and this is kind of bridging a little bit more into what Eunice has been talking about, and perhaps the future of waste management on the vineyard. We can jump to the next slide. We have this composting facility here on Nantucket, and it's rather unique. It's an in-vessel drum, and there's only one other one exactly like this in the world. It's not in operation now. It was taken down. It was in Marlborough up until about, I guess, April of 2019. So this drum rotates, and the food waste and paper as well makes its way down through that drum. It takes 2 to 3 days, and then it's screened on this end here, on this final end. One of our struggles is the contamination in the composting stream, and that goes back to kind of the history of waste on Nantucket and how it was managed, and how we just had household waste, and so everything, all the garbage was going into there. And so recently we've made an effort to separate that out. So there's a screening, and then if we go to the next slide, please, we end up with the residuals, the contamination. So we end up with the compost and then the contamination, and the contamination is baled and goes into the landfill, and that's the only thing landfilled here. that's intentionally put into the landfill, and we're permitted just for that. We do have to put a layer of something on top of a landfill, just like normal practice, to prevent bags and such from blowing out. And so instead of shipping things to the island to do that with, we use the glass, the broken up glass and other, mixed excavation waste to do that, just to be environmental stewards and stay within our permit regulations. We can jump to the next slide, please. Thank you. So in 2018, in October, was kind of when I came on board. I'm the first person for the town looking at this. I'm the first recycling and solid waste coordinator. And, we started thinking, does it really make sense to put all of our trash into the composter? Can we end up with a product that's less than ideal? And then we're filling, our very, very limited space landfill here on Nantucket. And we can't ship the contamination off. So whatever contamination is in the compost, we've had to leave it on based on our permit requirements. And so we did a waste sort. And so Worcester Polytechnic Institute team came and joined us, and we took 200 bags of household trash, tore them open, and then sorted them into about 18 different categories. And if we jump to the next slide, thank you. This is kind of what we found. If we can just focus in on the pie graph chart to the left, and we see that the bulk of everything is compostable waste, and that's great. It's like breaking down to dirt, but there is a large fraction that is not. Some things that should have gotten recycled, and then other things that are causing problems, like film plastics in the composter. They get all up in the machinery and make a lot of issues. And then when it gets baled in the landfill, it is still holding a lot of the compost. A plastic bag is sometimes hard to clean. You find it on the beach or something and it's clogged with sand. Same idea with this like wet compost material that's being created. And so we end up putting a fair bit of our compost in our landfill, unfortunately, because of all this contamination. So this spurred these changes here locally, that we have now a compostable waste stream and kind of a trash waste stream. We call it non-recyclable, non-compostable waste, but basically it's trash in any community that's composting. And so that non-recyclable, non-compostable waste is now shipped off island. So it's decreasing what's going in our landfill, but it is something else that's going across on the boats. Now, so far we've talked about our recyclable waste that's going off. Yeah, next slide is perfect, great. The recyclable waste that are going off with the exception of glass, so that's everything in the blue section. The green is staying here on island, including any contamination in it. And then the non-recyclable, non-compostable waste is also getting shipped off to Zero Waste Solutions in Rochester, if anybody's curious. And we can jump to the next slide, thank you. And so a big part of what we talk about here is, where is away when you throw it away? And so this kind of is a breakdown overall beyond just our normal household primary waste of, what stays on island, what goes off, and, what's landfilled versus recycled. So I believe on the vineyard, you all keep your leaf and yard waste and such there. We do too, that stays here, and we have just as much leaf and yard waste here as we do of, trash, compostable waste, and non-recyclable, non-compostable waste mixed. It's about 12,000 tons. And then we have mixed excavation waste, glass, clean wood, brush, and then asphalt, brick, concrete stays here as well. We talked a bit about the primary recyclables that we have in our households, but then electronics, scrap metal, tires, mattresses, box springs, that's all shipped off as well. And then the construction, demolition debris, and non-recyclable, non-compostable waste is also shipped off. And of these that are shipped off, the C&D, the construction and demolition waste, is probably taking up the most space on the boats. We send 2 to 3 trucks off a day of that material.
Wow.
And it all comes back to waste reduction, and Eunice spoke about that. We're shipping all this stuff to the islands and then we're shipping it all off again. And it doesn't make much sense. And when we can minimize that, we have limited boat space. It's impossible to get a reservation. As much as your folks try to help me get a reservation on the ferry in the summer, it's really impossible. And so we've had some plastic bans here in Nantucket that help us with the composting aspect here. And we've also done a lot of education with, minimizing things. So not even switching to single-use alternatives that are compostable, but, getting rid of them entirely. So we don't have to ship them here to start with. So having a reusable water bottle, for instance, rather than, even an aluminum can water bottle that is now allowed on Nantucket rather than the plastic ones, because that does have to get shipped here and shipped off. So trying to create that island resiliency. Yeah, the next slide's great, thank you. And so I'm gonna open up for questions. There's my information. If you have any questions beyond that you think of, feel free to reach out. And so that's a quick overview, and hopefully shed some light on what's going on different islands. I know I learned a lot from talking with Dawn and Eunice and visiting the vineyard to see what's going on over there. We have unique challenges, but at the same time, these are unique opportunities.
Thank you both. Are there any questions for Graham? Keith, and you have to unmute yourself, you know that?
I don't have a specific question. It just jumps out to me from the naked eye that as someone who's from the vineyard, we would benefit a lot from having the kind of streamlined governmental system that they have on Nantucket, because as I'm sure Eunice knows, going to 6 different town boards for funding for something or going to 6 different towns for zoning authorization is a real pain. So I was noticing that, which I noticed on a lot of issues. I was noticing that with both presentations, but thank you both very much. I appreciate it.
If I could ask a question, since no one else seems to be jumping in. Obviously,
I had a question at some point.
oh, sorry, Leon, go ahead.
On the contaminated stuff that you're putting in the landfill, is that all, you said the plastic bags are what's causing that to be contaminated?
And this
Graham?
is for Graham. What are the contaminants in the landfill, in other words, I think?
Yeah, so if we go, yeah, I can just explain. So plastic film does create a lot of these challenges, but there's a lot of everything else. For the longest time, when we did the first waste sort, it was all household trash that was going in there. So you can imagine, everything from frying pans and sneakers to diapers and chip bags and everything you throw away, right? Those little pesky stickers on fruit and vegetables, that's really tricky, and something that composters always deal with, when people are getting rid of peels of things that might have those stickers. So it was all across the board, really, and that's the effort that we're trying to get out. But one of these single-use items that's really challenging are trash bags, right? We use trash bags once and throw them away, and so we receive all of that waste at the composter in trash bags, and that accounts for a good deal of it. The DPW, we looked at it 2 years ago, and I think we go through, I think it was 2 tons of trash bags, just trash bags, not what's in it in a summer. Just filling our about 155 receptacles around the island and just emptying them as needed. It's an astounding amount of plastic that's just used to contain more plastic and trash.
Doug Brown.
Would it make sense to have trash picked up just in a barrel like they do off island, just dump it into the truck without using plastic bags to put it out? Because that's how we do it on the island. We put everything in a plastic bag and they charge you by the bag. So if we just use the barrel and just dump the barrel, that would be better for what you're saying for recycling than putting the plastic bag in it.
It could be, yeah, anytime we can minimize, but at the same time we need to have infrastructure in place and vehicles in place where we're not having wind-blown litter. And so that's one of the challenges. I know here we're still using stake body trucks to haul waste. The private haulers are the ones hauling waste here, and they're using stake body trucks for the most part. And that works. There's a lot of advantages to that. They can put a lot of different waste streams in there. But that doesn't work too well if it's not fully covered and secured as a load, if it's loose. So there's a lot of things to balance in all of that.
Thank you.
Doug Brown?
Yes. Hi, Graham. I'm wondering, I took a tour of your facility a couple years ago with the Falmouth Solid Waste Advisory Committee, and it was very interesting. And when I left there, I thought I took away the impression that even though you were composting and the fill was being used around the site, there would at some point be a limit to the amount of fill that you could use over there, and you may end up trucking that out. Did I get that right? Somebody else corrected me on that.
We were mining the original landfill. So the landfill is in an area that is a wetland, and that's, you know, typically in history where you throw garbage wherever it disappears, right? And so our landfill was going into encroaching on the wetlands and into Long Pond, which is this long pond over on the side of our landfill. And so we tried to recover some space both to let the wetland come back to life and do its job in filtering, but also so that we could make more space for our DPW campus and for landfill space. You know, we're running out of space here, and we're not allowed to do that anymore based on our permit with DEP. And part of the concerns were emerging contaminants. And so we thought originally with DEP that, you know, years ago when we started the mining, that we could use those reclaimed soils across the island as needed. But that changed with these new concerns about contaminants. And so those contaminants have to remain on site, and it's unclear whether they will need to go inside a landfill cell, which could create some major challenges, or they can remain outside. You know, it's all pending a lot of things that DEP is working to figure out at this point.
So even though you've composted it, it's not perfect, and it's questionable of whether it can be distributed widely.
Well, so that's different than the mining is different. So the mining is from the old landfill. The composting is what we're receiving from current Nantucketers. I will say that our current composting process has biosolids in it and paper, and there is concern about emerging contaminants. There's not been a ruling from DEP yet. This is all like very new stuff. You may have heard about PFAS. And out of an abundance of caution and just knowledge of what's going on elsewhere with biosolids, Nantucket, the town of Nantucket, and our vendor, our waste vendor, Waste Options, who runs the facility, we've stopped putting that out to the public at this time until, you know, for further rulings from DEP and we know it's truly safe. But we do still compost our leaf and yard waste, and we're actually looking to going back to just food waste only and figuring something out with our biosolids from the wastewater treatment plant and just doing food waste, because that's, you know, that's the safest thing. And, you know, that's what we're eating, you know, it's food waste. It's part of what we're putting in our body. And so you have to hope that that's safe, you know, we're putting it in our body.
Yeah, to be clear, our compost here on the vineyard does not have biosolids in it. It's a very clean product. So, you know, just to make that clear.
Right.
I don't think you have a lot of the same contamination issues.
It's just food waste. So it's not, you know, it's garbage, so it's imperfect. So we do get some contamination, but, you know, it's not at the level of, not at a very high level.
I think part of it, as soon as you add paper into the mix for us, so I know we have food waste and paper, and then we have the history of putting everything into it, is what's costing us our high contamination rates here on Nantucket. But when you have food waste, there's little, you know, everybody knows what food waste is, and maybe some people, oh, can I put my scallop shells in or not? But that's not going to add to, you know, some major contaminant issues in that way.
Okay, thank you.
Adam, yes.
Yeah, before I see Bob Davis, and I'm sorry, Bob, but I got to run.
Okay.
But I figured this meeting really, I mean, Eunice does such good work, and and now, you know, I've seen Graham, that this is something we have to do in terms of the health and everything. But for this, you know, steamship, it would reduce truck traffic, which is a major part of, I think, our stream of traffic on using the Steamship Authority. And it's something, you know, that we really should think about. We are definitely different than, you know, normally you would bond this stuff and pay for it in a way, but we have 6 towns. So it becomes increasingly difficult to do everything, but it's something we need to do. We had landfills on this island. We don't anymore. The next generation of recycling. I talked to Eunice, 3 weeks ago about this project. The commission,
Yeah.
when we permitted Don Hatch's expansion, we specifically put in a place for recycling, knowing that it would be the next thing that we have to do. And we're gonna have to bite the bullet and pay for some of these facilities. There is no other way. But I also think it needs to be seen as very, very important. And I think, people still see it as garbage here. And it's easier to throw it on a truck and put it in a landfill and let somebody else get rid of it. And we'll just pay a little more. But I don't think that's, and everything else that we're doing, trying to be good, neighbors to the earth, that thinking has to change. And the commission, we've been at the forefront of a lot of this stuff. And I think I told Eunice that we would work with her. We definitely worked with her when we permitted Don's facility. And now we have to get we have to implement it and get those equipments. So don't give up, Eunice. I mean, I think it needs to, I really do think we need to have that conversation, with the island just some more.
Yeah. Well, just to be clear, we know that waste costs are only going to go up. So 40% of Massachusetts waste is exported now. There aren't more landfills or more incinerators opening in Massachusetts. So those prices are just going to get higher and higher, particularly for us, as we add export costs on top of the disposal costs. So Graham, you're paying 400 something a ton for your non-compostable,
Yeah, our non-recyclable, non-compostable, and our C&D are there 428, I think, a ton.
a bundled cost.
Yeah, everything included, shipping it off, hauling, tip fees, everything. And, and once they're received by the receiver, C&D is going to Ohio, and our non-recyclable, non-compostable is going to Virginia. The stuff that, they can't sort out. And it's just going further and further, as Eunice mentioned. And it's not just in Massachusetts, Connecticut is closing down their stuff. They're looking at waste reduction in a big way there. Vermont, New Hampshire, a lot of our waste in Massachusetts goes to New Hampshire actually. And they're looking, they're running out of capacity, and they're looking at why are we taking Massachusetts waste when we have to take care of ourselves? So, I think Massachusetts, quite frankly, is a little bit behind the game, and we're going to have to really step it up. And, we have an option to be ahead of it all, or just kind of get caught up in that tornado. I really think, and just to hear DEP talk about it as well, they're really concerned.
Bob?
So thank you, Eunice and Graham, for coming. I did have a question. The WPI study that you did, was that during the summertime, or did you sample at off season as well to see if there's any difference between, whether it's an education thing for the visitors or whether it's an overall education?
Yeah, great question. So that was done before we made these changes, and that was kind of the impetus for the changes. And that was in October of 2018. So kind of the shoulder season. I think it was the 13th maybe. And we've continued that, they've gone home, and they're probably graduating about now. But we do our waste sorts twice a year, and we're actually looking to expand that. So we do it once in the on season and one in the off season. And we've seen, slowly decreasing the contamination, which is really great, and fewer and fewer recyclables. So we've done a lot of outreach, and behavior change is really challenging. Furthermore, we have some struggles with our private haulers and them getting on board. So that's a whole nother story. But we have seen the changes, especially at the drop off, with it decreasing. And we have year-round people who don't care, and others who are thoroughly engaged. And same with the summer folks. We have summer residents who are engaged with our recycling and solid waste stuff year round, and then others who don't really even know what's going on.
Thank you.
Doug Cederholm.
I just have a quick question for, I guess, Eunice. There's a plan for the transfer station, Don's operation, to have a composting facility. Is there anything planned for, there are two Down Island towns that unfortunately are not in the refuse district. Is there anything on the works for them to have composting facilities?
So, you know, historically, before the waste systems were separated, before it became MVRD and OB Tisbury, there was an island plan of which this, you know, they were breaking up, you know, construction waste and solid waste. And the composting, the food waste was supposed to happen at Tisbury. So there's a history of a desire to do it both in Tisbury and Greg runs the OB transfer station. He's our partner in food waste collection. It's something he's extremely knowledgeable about, food waste. I'm sure he would be interested in. Well, I won't speak for you, Greg, but I would say the demand is going to come from businesses. So we have over 2,000 tons of food waste that's illegal for people to dispose of. And while historically Mass DEP has offered more carrots in terms of financial incentives for communities and businesses to do the right thing and create, recycle food and other recyclables, they're moving to the stick. So they're sending out, you know, and it's a series of letters. So it's a letter, you get a letter, and then it's increasing financial penalties for non-compliance. And they plan on really ramping that back up in January of next year. So it's the island businesses who are going to need to be compliant, and we don't have the infrastructure today to process what we already should be processing. So the demand is going to be coming from island businesses.
I would think there are an awful lot of businesses in Tisbury and OB, the restaurants, who would love to recycle their food waste.
Yes. I mean, we have a lot of clients there now, but, you know, as always is the case, the top producers, you know, the ones that produce the most are not the ones who are compliant. So there's a lot of opportunities there.
Well, DEP does have a stick, so.
Yeah.
Thanks.
John, if you could unmute yourself.
Another question for Eunice. What has the reception been in the town so far when you go to fund the separate?
So, you know, pretty much without exception, everyone thinks it's a great idea. It's a no-brainer. I mean, it's, you know, why are we spending money to ship something off when we could keep and import something else in? None of this makes sense. Where the rubber meets the road is who's going to pay for it, right?
Right.
So, you know, yeah. So, you know, our initial assumption all along has been, you know, because we know what the export and disposal costs are, we know those costs are going to continue to go up and up over time, that we thought we could demonstrate that there's a financial benefit to the towns, to the individual towns, for diverting food waste and recycling it here. However, because of the way the nature of the budgets work, and, you know, a few other things, I can't go to any of the 6 towns and say, this is going to save you money and it's going to generate additional revenue. So our whole assumption all along has been that. And so now once we dug into the individual budgets, you know, we've realized that. So now we're figuring, okay, so how are we going to pay for it? It's $9.8 million. You know, so we wrote to, you know, Senator Keating to say, you know, appropriations are back on the table this year. Got a bunch of people to write to ask him to put our composting operation on as one of his appropriations. It's a long shot. You know, we have, you know, probably the biggest producer on island is the Edgartown Stop and Shop. They have a big expansion planned in Edgartown, and they are currently not doing anything good with their waste. It's going right into the waste stream. So Stop and Shop is doing, you know, has a public commitment to 0% to landfill by 2020. And they have their own incinerator and they have their own whole system, both in terms of recycling as well as food recovery off island. But on Nantucket and Martha's Vineyard, it's all getting landfilled or, you know, sent to CMAS. So there's a huge opportunity there. I mean, it's a PR opportunity for them. to do the right thing here. So other investors are interested. You know, one of the wonderful things about our island is we have access to, you know, people with very deep pockets that are, you know, committed to this. So, you know, we don't know yet how we're going to get there, but we're going to get there. So
Good.
there's lots of possibilities.
Well, I wish that we at the MVC had known about the Edgartown Stop and Shop's waste situation when they were in front of us a couple of years ago. I really do. We didn't know a thing about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
They came for that huge expansion, which we approved.
Yeah. Yeah. And Matt Poole, the Board of Health, is, I mean, he is hyper conscious of food waste and these issues. And it's a part of diverting it and creating a diversion area is part of their plan for their store. But the thing is on Nantucket and Martha's Vineyard, nothing has changed and they're spending money to export it. And, you know, we could really use a partner in a composting operation just to compost their stuff.
Leon, I think, and then Doug Brown.
Eunice, I went online a couple of months or so ago and looked up, there was a lot of federal grants for rural communities, and I checked even last night, and
Yeah.
I put in the address of Dawn's place, and it qualifies as rural. So, and there's the application process, I guess, is in the fall.
Yeah.
And I would, you know, I'll work with you on the congressional side, but
I would
I
love that.
also think that one of the things we can do to Stop and Shop, and I think Doug would like this, they should give us $1 million towards this project, period. They have it, and they could go even deeper. I mean, they have serious deep pockets over there,
Yes.
and they do it in other countries, so they should probably contribute here too. So
It's a Scandinavian parent company. They are committed to doing the right thing.
right,
you know,
and they have
except
billions of
Nantucket
dollars.
and Martha's Vineyard.
We'll get it out of them.
Yeah.
Okay, Doug Brown.
I got a question about the way is there a county government structure? I mean, I know you have the Martha's Vineyard Commission, but I wonder, is there like a Dukes County, like Barnstable County government? We have a pretty good county government that could be a regional entity for something like this. Do you have something set up like that over there?
Leon should answer that one.
Yes, we have county government, Doug, but the issue is the county government has 6 towns feeding into it, and
Okay.
each of the 6 towns operate individually. And when we have a CAB that overlooks us, and if we want to do something, bring this in, there'd be a big argument about, yeah, you're going to do it, but you have to get all 6 towns to agree to do it before we'll allow you to go for the money to do it with. It's usually the case that they do.
We also can't tax, which is the fault in the system. The county advisory board is basically telling us whether or not whether we can or cannot spend taxpayer dollars, but if we're going to spend that money, it's going to come from the towns. So they have a pretty vested interest in
Well, in
not giving
Barnstable
us money.
County, the Registry of Deeds is the funding mechanism for the county government, and they take a percentage of real estate sales.
We do some of that too.
They give us a serious amount of money for us.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, frankly, I don't mean to go on a rant here, but we could pay for this facility in 1 year. If we just went from 6 towns to 1 for 1 year, we would save $60 million in a single year. And we could pay for this and countless other projects in a single year. But that would require some power bases to be torn down, and that would require some regionalization, which has been a dirty word for a long time.
It would be, if you want to understand the limits of county government here, you should just visit our courthouse. An awful lot of the money comes out of the Registry of Deeds, which is in the courthouse, and we have probably the most antiquated courthouse in the Commonwealth. It's not even close.
All right. Jim, I think you had your hand up.
Yep. Graham, you said the education efforts you undertook on Nantucket worked pretty well. Do you have an estimate of how much you saved by educating people?
We haven't looked into that right now, and quite honestly, the waste services agreement, which kind of defines the contract and the payments between the town and Waste Options, our vendor, is a massive mess, quite frankly. And so nothing really we can do. There's a lot of fixed fees and things like that. So nothing we can do is really going to save money in that way right now. But long term, you know, maximizing space in our landfill and keeping the possibilities for the future open, you know, that has some real value. So short term, I haven't been able to do anything like that, but long term, there's good value. And we're at a point where the contract with Waste Options expires in November of 2025. And so the next step is, you know, what's the future of solid waste on Nantucket? Do we continue composting? Do we ship it all off? Do we use some new technology like chemical recycling, gasification, or pyrolysis? So we're looking into that right now. But a lot of that stuff, you know, depends on clean waste streams. So it is kind of preparing in many ways for the future and setting us up to be in a good position. And it's going to be ongoing education, you know, as all.
It seems like a good place to put resources is to just getting people to not put bad stuff in their trash to start with. And that seems like a good place to start.
That's certainly what the state of Connecticut is doing. You know, they're really trying to figure out their waste and waste reduction and, you know, how they can do that. And they've figured out the most cost-effective way to do it and most efficient way to do it is, you know, with that behavior change and education. And it seems so simple and it's challenging, but, you know, it's really the way rather than trying to rely on these really complicated technologies that can't even do it that well. Yeah.
So just so you all know that there's a role funded by Mass DP, a recycling coordinator role similar to what Graham does, or I don't know how you fit under that umbrella.
Yeah, that's an education and enforcement
Yes.
position. So my role is kind of different, but we've looked into hiring somebody like that for the future. I have 2 waste reduction interns coming to help me this summer, and they're going to be doing lots of education. And I don't know if you have such a diverse community as we have here, but one of our struggles in the past as a town is, you know, how do we reach our whole community? And, you know, people often blame it on people coming from other countries and living here, you know, and, you know, I've taught English to many of them and they really want to know what's going on and they kind of feel left out. So how do we reach our whole community and get outreach in Spanish, Portuguese, Bulgarian, you know, all across Thai, all across the field, and not just in our paid newspaper, you know, where do these communities find their information? Going to the churches and different meetings like that is really important.
Yeah, so there's funding from Mass DP for a position for $60,000 a year to do enforcement and education. The problem is the position has to exist before they'll fund it. So you can't get the funding and then have the position, you have to have the position first. But the education piece has been a really big part of my job. And one of the things that we've done is done these compost bucket giveaways at every island transfer station. And it's fascinating to watch how everyone wants to do the right thing with their recycling because we're standing right there. And, you know, it's everyone's dirty little secret. They don't want anybody to see which bin they're throwing things in because no one really knows what to do. So there's plenty of opportunity for education in this space.
Don, if I could ask you a question about your facility. A lot of information came over the screen today, but I understand that you're awaiting permitting from Mass DEP. And when do you expect that permitting to come through and what will you be able to do when it does?
We're opening up 4 acres of land to move our traffic flow around, which is going to give us about almost 2 acres to build or use for different venues of sorting waste or composting it. So we're opening up space. We're making it a more user-friendly facility and opening up space for future developments.
And when do you expect to do that?
About 5 years past, but anyways, we're very close now. We're just at the Board of Health has to make one more adjustment to one of our buffer zones. We're trying to move them along sooner than they're talking about a fall meeting, and we're hoping we can ask them to move it up into the next 30 days is what our current request is to the Board of Health. And it's the last hurdle we have to clear before we start clearing the property.
Great. All right, Doug Brown, I think you had a question and I
I have just another far-fetched idea. I went to a Falmouth Education Foundation. I volunteered to be one of the trash people, and Mary Bunker Ryther, who is our new waste, I don't remember the title, but we just hired her as a part-time job to work in the town on trash recycling and so forth. So Mary and I were standing by the trash cans, and she said, make sure people don't throw any trash, only composting in these barrels. And then the one trash barrel in the back is for absolutely stuff that can't go in there. And so people came up with their plastic forks and plates and stuff. And I thought that went in the trash. It was all compostable, made from cornstarch. And so she had this whole event planned to where the whole thing was supposed to be compostable and recyclable. And we ended up hosting 800 people, and there was 30 bags of compost and only 2 bags of trash. So that was interesting. And I wonder, at some point, would you consider like banning everything that's not compostable, because these things are becoming available? And I know it's far-fetched, but it's just a thought.
I would love that. Probably a few other people would, but
I can't speak on behalf of my fellow commissioners, but I can say that I would also love to do that at the county level and just go right over the town's head. Unfortunately, we don't have the power to enforce such a policy, but it would fall, it's a welcome idea.
Doug, just so you know, there are 3 Dukes County commissioners on this task force: John Cahill, Leon, and Keith. So
If there'd be one more, we'd have a quorum. We couldn't meet.
How many commissioners are there?
7.
7.
Eunice,
Bob?
did you speak before the All Island Selectmen about 2 years ago?
I did.
And they accepted it at that meeting very openly. Every single town was represented there.
Yes, everyone is very enthusiastic. I mean, it's a no-brainer, but where it gets challenging is who's going to pay for it and how are we going to pay for it? So.
Meanwhile, you're already paying for it.
Yeah, yeah.
I see John Cahill.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's all right. Another question for Eunice. Talk to us about the mandates coming down from the state of Massachusetts in the years ahead.
So the Massachusetts organics ban says that if you produce 1 ton or more of food waste any week of the year, it could only be 1 week of the year, you are required to recycle all of your food waste, meaning you are not allowed to put it into your just garbage, regular garbage. You have to recycle it. So in the fall of
They're
this
saying
year,
that now?
that's the case today. Yes.
And what happens if you don't comply?
So like I said, there's been very little, very few sticks from Mass DP. So I know that Mass DP, right before COVID, sent out a bunch of compliance letters to island businesses, well, businesses everywhere, but island businesses. But then COVID hit. And so, that kind of threw everything. But what the kind of plan is now is that, businesses are slowly recovering. The new waste ban at 0.5 ton will go into effect. And then a whole new series of enforcement will begin. And they're moving away from carrots to sticks. So they're expecting, it's a system of letter, warning, fine, bigger fine, bigger fine, bigger fine. So that's what they're telling me.
And what's the timeline on that bigger fine?
So, I mean, mid-year, I would say by a year from now, a year and change from now, I would say that people will be beginning to be fined, the first level of fines, because I expect letters to go out again this, probably February or so. And then they have to show what they're doing. They have to demonstrate that they're actually diverting their food waste.
So if I can ask another follow-up, can we assume that places like Stop and Shop have already received the letter?
We can assume that, yes.
Can we assume that Reliable Market has already received the letter?
We can assume that.
How
I don't
about
know for sure, but I would guess, yeah.
a restaurant?
Atlantic, I mean, I'm sure, yeah.
All
I
right,
mean,
so
they're
now
definitely,
I just want to bounce over to Doug and to Jim. As the Martha's Vineyard Commission,
They're
what can
both
we
gone, I
do?
think.
What's that?
They're both gone by now.
Ah, yeah, okay.
Sorry. But what were you
Um,
going,
Well, I'll go back to Eunice if you don't mind. Eunice, what could the commission, Martha's Vineyard Commission, do to help get the visibility on the town level?
so, I mean, the Martha's Vineyard Commission is unbelievably supportive. We've spoken to them, we've done, you know, shared events together to raise awareness, bring, you know, stakeholders together. They're very supportive. They're actually helping me identify additional funding opportunities and other avenues. They give me a forum when, you know, when I need it. And, you know, the other thing is as we're thinking about a satellite system rather than this system that has this really high price tag, that the Martha's Vineyard Commission actually created a map, you know, 15 years ago or 10 years ago of all of the land that would work under the general permit for a composting operation. So all of the regulations and distance from, you know, water and all that, those sorts of things. So I actually have a map of all these areas, private land, conservation land, you know, downtown land, all this land all over the place where we could have composting operations. So creating satellite systems, it's not the most efficient way, but it has a much lower price tag.
Thank you.
If I could just take a guess, I don't think that the DEP probably has a list of everybody that creates more than a ton of waste a week.
They do.
Do they? How do they
They
get
do.
that? You just assume a
It's,
supermarket would have that?
well, it's formulas. So the list that they're operating off now is a list from 2002. So it's a very old list. But they do have, I mean, that's the list that they use.
Don, did you want to say something? You've unmuted yourself.
No, I think that list that Eunice is talking about was made by how many tables or seats they have per restaurant, and they have an average from that to figure it out. So they've had.
How many days open?
Right, how many days open, how many seats?
Yeah. How many meals a day they serve?
Right.
Yeah, it's a formula.
The
It would
list,
be great to redo that for the island.
the list can be found on their website too, fairly easily. You're curious.
But one thing that we've found doing collection is the people that we have, our current clients, when we compare what we're actually collecting from Mass DEP's estimations, they're significantly off, usually too low. In a couple of cases too high, but mostly too low. So they're underestimating the volumes.
Oh, yes, John.
One last question. It's for Greg Carroll. Greg, can you just go over those numbers again? If we were to go island-wide composting using the formulas that we have been presented today, how many trucks would be able to be saved going off? And I'm assuming those trucks would have to come back. So how many trips are we talking about on the Steamship Authority back and forth?
Eunice, you can correct me, but I think we came up with 260 round trips.
Yep.
That's for 650 tons projection for food waste, which if we get going on this, we can reach that. We can reach those numbers. It'll probably, 36 to 48 months is my opinion. I just, I'll add that on the end disposal where we're disposing right now, they are looking through the loads and they are reporting to the DEP our percentages of food waste that are mixed in the loads, or if something else gets mixed in, if they find a mattress or something. They've been really diligent the last 12 months. So I'll ditto what Eunice is saying. It's only a few months away before they start really enforcing things.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much. No one else has, this has been very educational. I'm very glad that this task force, although it's the Steamship Authority created it to deal with issues, it indicates that many of the issues that we face are really dependent upon what the island decides to do with its systems. And I don't think the Steamship Authority is in the solid waste or waste reduction business, except for our own operations. But what the island does itself will have a great impact on our operations. And while we make it clear that we support those initiatives all the way, and we hope that you're successful in that, and we can help everyone out in this endeavor.
I
Thank
had
you.
one quick question for
Yes.
either Eunice or Graham. 75 years ago, we had a garbage container in the ground in my backyard, and they dumped everything in it, and a person came and he took it and he put it on this stinky truck and he drove it away. What were they doing then in those days with that garbage that was being collected? And it was just pure garbage.
It was pig farmers, and the pig farmers went away. That's the history. Or actually, I was just talking to this woman who's retiring from Mass DP who grew up in Waltham yesterday.
Mhm.
And she was reminiscing about that very thing, that there was a tin and it was buried in the ground, and you push this lever and it opened, and the pig farmers would come by, and she said it's really that there's fewer and fewer pig farmers. I don't know if Graham, you have another story.
We
Thank you
don't
for-
have that here. And I think maybe because there weren't really pig farmers here. You know, what used to happen here was there were a couple of dump spots, and it was an unlined landfill at that point. You know, it was just going into the wetlands. And when the pile got too big, they would, keep pushing it into the water. And at a certain point, they started burning it. You know, when the pile was too big, they'd light it on fire, and there you go.
I remember my grandparents having that in East Providence.
Yeah.
Way back when. And I remember I threw a banana peel in the trash can and my grandfather gave me a smack in the head and said, "What's the matter with you? That goes in the garbage."
Yes. Yeah.
Thank
Well,
you.
thank you very much. Eunice, Graham, Don, Greg, and Adam in his absence. This has been extremely informative, and we all wish you well in your endeavors.
Thank you.
Thanks for
Thank
having
you.
us.
Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, it's already long past, but we'll try to go through other aspects. The next item on the agenda is the hopeful approval of the minutes of the task force March 18th, 2021 meeting.
I move approval of the minutes, but 15 pages, Steve?
I find everything-
Transcript.
people say important things, so I put them in.
I think it's good the way you do it. I mean, you didn't miss anything, so.
No, there are ideas in there that I want people to remember
Right.
for the future. Is there a second?
Second.
I have point of order. So in the minutes, you have myself and Mark as task force members. We should be under the also participating because we're not voting members.
All right, I would just put in you as members, but not voting members, that's all.
Oh, okay. Well,
But
you could,
doesn't matter, it's.
either way.
I think, okay. Any discussion about the minutes? Mr. Braithwaite,
Brathwaite, aye.
Mr. Brown,
Brown eye.
Mr. Cahill,
Cahill, aye.
Mr. Shatnover,
Patton over, aye.
and Mr. Suso.
So I.
I think that's all that's here, and that's fine. I put on the agenda, and Doug Brown thought it would be a good idea as well, just to give the task force members a report on the Falmouth Transportation Management Committee's April 22nd meeting. They are going, it appears to be voting at their next meeting on May 13th on, it seems, I think it's fair to say, to strongly support, they can only make recommendations to the Falmouth Select Board.
Correct.
And they're going to recommend to the Falmouth Select Board to support Senator Moran's legislation that she filed earlier this year. They're also going to make recommendations about the Steamship Authority applying for grant applications in order to improve its freight operations. And it's unclear whether they are going to recommend that the selectmen vote to close Cowdery Road and Crane Street to truck traffic from 10 p.m. at night or 5:30 or 6 a.m. in the morning. It's unclear from that. They didn't take a vote. What they hope is that the Steamship Authority will reconsider the 5:30 freight trip. I think that's probably the issue. They've made several suggestions as to how the Steamship Authority can revise its operating schedules. We have a hearing on that on Monday on our proposed operating schedules, which again do include the 5:30 freight trip. We're going to take public comment and testimony at that hearing, and we're going to be studying both our proposed schedules and the alternatives ones that have been suggested by the Falmouth Transportation Management Committee. And we're going to look at the item very closely, and we hope and we intend to do it with an open mind. We don't know, of course, what the result will be at this point because we're only starting in the process, but we're going to give it a shot. Given that, I don't know what the Transportation Committee will do on their next meeting, May 13th, because we certainly will not have a
Well,
presentation by that time.
I'm pretty sure that they left the discussion about the no truck traffic open-ended in hopes that Steamship Authority would think of some ideas of mitigation. I don't think they're going to vote that one. I do agree with you that they'll probably support Senator Moran's legislation. And I have to admit, I have not fully read the legislation even today, so I can't really comment on what exactly it would spell out. I don't know if you folks have read it or have comments about it. My initial understanding was that her proposal would change the voting weight from 10% per each town on the mainland to 15%. And if that would be the case, it's still not a majority. It would still take another town from the Vineyard or Nantucket or somewhere to support whatever they were voting for. So I don't know if that's actually correct or not.
I don't believe that's correct, but
Okay.
what I was going to request is that this task force, and I said this at yesterday's working group meeting because we're trying to mitigate things. I think we've done a lot over the last several months. I think we're starting to look at very important and insurmountable issues in terms of car traffic on the island and everything else going on. And for once, we are working, I believe, cooperatively with the communities instead of confronting the communities, which I know that's what appears to be happening with Senator Moran's proposal and other things. But I want us to continue with the foster of cooperation and try to address the issues that seem to be intractable, and try to accomplish something and do some public good for both communities. We are getting to know each other. As long as we're having a discussion and as long as we're courteous and civil to each other, we have to make a difference. And that's my personal request.
If I could comment just a little bit further. When the Transportation Committee was formed, they have a couple of initiatives. They want to take up downtown parking, which they've already addressed. Pavement management is another new one for them, that they want to understand how we take care of our pavement. And then the Transportation Committee wanted to know about the Steamship Authority issues, or not that they wanted to know, but they wanted to take up the Steamship Authority. They wanted to take up the issue. Mr. Suso, in his wisdom, tried to steer them away and say, maybe that's not the best thing for you guys to be working on right now. I went to their meeting, I'm their liaison, and they said, Mr. Suso seems to think that maybe we shouldn't be looking at island traffic. And ignorantly, I said, well, I don't know how you can look at traffic in Falmouth without acknowledging that the Steamship Authority impacts traffic. So I kind of encouraged them to look at it, and maybe it's not the best thing. They're a very dynamic group. There's a lot of really smart people, and they're very motivated. So maybe they're moving a little too fast on this. And Senator Moran's legislation came as a very big surprise to myself. I don't know if others were aware of the initiative, but I was surprised. And the timing is not the best for us. I mean, we're like you said, we're just getting to know each other. We have a long way to go and a lot of work to do. And it's a little bit unfortunate to have these three things converging at the same time.
And I do want to say, we had Ed DeWitt, as you know, at the last meeting, and I don't think any of us would argue that we should be looking at grant applications to see if we can improve our freight operations. That's a very good
It's a great
suggestion.
idea.
And those types of things, we would welcome input from all the communities. It's the other things that have been going on that have made it difficult for the relationship. And I would like us as this task force, however we do in our, whatever other bodies people serve on, but I would like us to try to focus on trying to accomplish what we're trying to accomplish.
Well, I hope that's the case. I certainly enjoy working here and I'd like to continue. It's a long way off before New Bedford's ready, but I think if we continue on the track that we're on, if there is an opportunity there, we'll be ready for it at that time.
So I will continue on unless someone else has something. Correspondence, we have an email from Mr. Packer's compliance officer informing us that they have engaged an engineering firm to look at the feasibility of baling solid waste and then putting it onto the barge and barging it off island. My sense is that if that is the opposite of what composting operations would be, but that's another alternative. So that's not, again, that's not something that the Steamship Authority has any control over. Mr. Packer does not need our permission in order to operate that, go forward with that operation. That would be containerized cargo or bulk cargo or break bulk cargo. And we entered into a stipulated order back in 2011 that says he does not need our permission to do that. So that's another island issue again, but how that functions may have an impact on the amount of freight we carry. So I would encourage the island to look at that. If composting is not going to happen as you hope, then that is another possibility that the island can investigate. And we had a session several months ago with him about that operation. And he may be coming back with more information about how that can be accomplished.
Well, even if the composting is wildly successful, there's still a role for the barging of the trash, if you choose that.
Right. Correct.
That's a good possibility. Yeah, you're right.
Okay.
The trash and the recyclables is
Correct.
Right.
Yeah, C and D maybe as well.
Right.
What's CMD?
Construction and demolition.
Oh, construction and demolition. I was surprised they had so much coming off of Nantucket. That was amazing.
They built some big houses over there.
But 2 to 3 trucks a day?
I was surprised it was less. I mean, I thought it would be more.
No, that's taking down something before you put something new up. That was just taking something down. I think they were taking down those many. Usually they're adding on to a house nowadays, not taking them down,
Well,
starting over.
Well, all construction causes debris.
Right.
So you might have 10 or 12 containers just from, remodeling jobs and construction. Right. It doesn't have to be a demolition of a whole house to create the construction demolition.
John, I have a question for you. We were in one of the meetings the other day and it came up. What does it cost a day then a week to rent a car on the island? Roughly.
What time of year?
Summertime, prime time.
Well, the rates across the board, not just Hertz, but across the board, mainland and island have shot up due to the pandemic and they've sold a lot of cars. To answer your question, the cheapest car is $120 a day.
Okay.
Plus
And
fees and taxes.
In a week?
800 to 1,000.
Right.
Wow.
That was being offered as an alternative for people to leave their car in Falmouth and come to the island and rent a car for a week to save on cars coming to the island. But we weren't able to. You weren't at that last meeting, so I couldn't. The meeting we were attending.
Actually, I was there, but I didn't say anything.
Okay.
But you got to realize, if you count Hertz and all the other providers of rental cars,
Mhm.
we're less than 600 cars on the island. All right, let's call it 750 cars on the island. So we could never accommodate any kind
Right.
of growth.
I agree. And I just think that my way of thinking is that if a family of 4 is coming to the island, like Steve was saying, with all of their food, their kids and their luggage and everything,
Yeah.
they need to be able to have it in a vehicle to bring to the island to go sometimes a mile down a dirt road to offload it into a rental and then use it to get around the island. They didn't even know that it was $20 what's $20 a person for a cab sometimes? I know that's what it costs to come to my house.
No, that's probably was inaccurate. Would be, it's probably more like party of 3 or 4 would be $20 plus $5 a head.
I've had people pay $80 to come to my house, John, from Vineyard.
There are scammers out there.
Yes, I'm not disagreeing with you, but that we had the guy that was charging for the dog.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Well, this is why this is task force is important. 'Cause
That's why
we
we're
have
talking about these.
We have no clue what goes on over there.
Doug, could you believe the guy actually charged? There was four or five in the family, and they had a dog, and the guy charged them for the dog too.
Jeez.
So it's like $125 probably.
What is interesting is that Nantucket limits the amount of rental cars. So think about that one for a little bit.
Maybe
Actually, a lot of people will fly in and rent cars. A lot of people on the boats do not rent the cars.
But Nantucket is kind of compact, if you know what I mean. It's the downtown area. And if you're going to be out at one of the beach houses, you take a cab out there and you basically stay there, I guess. And I don't know what cabs cost there.
Everybody's different.
Yep.
Everybody's different.
Do you have much impact from Uber and Lyft over there?
Yeah, but I think with the growth overall, it really doesn't impact. Our revenues continue to rise. There's a big growth in private aviation. Huge market there.
Interesting.
Yeah.
This wasn't on the agenda, so I'm sort of.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
We probably shouldn't spend too much more time on it.
Just informational.
But this could be a topic for more discussion at the next meeting, which is on the agenda. Does anyone have any suggestions for what another issue that we should be discussing?
I would like to continue to learn about the current status of New Bedford, just to keep tabs on it. I know it's probably a long way off before there's any real resolution, but who would be our contact person there?
We'll try again for George Krikorian and see if it's been several months now. We'll see if he's amenable to coming.
Okay.
If not, we can talk certainly to our board member from New Bedford, Maura Tierney, or Ed Anthony Washington, and see who they may suggest that we should talk to.
I would still love to have Ed be the person, because I get the feeling he really knows the waterfront better than anyone.
All right, we'll pursue that.
Unless there's something more, I mean, that's not urgent. If something else comes up that you feel is more
Well,
dynamic.
I think it's good information to have so that people know what the obstacles are for New Bedford service. People think that we can, for the schedules next year, that we can simply go to New Bedford. And I don't think that's a reality.
I don't either.
Okay, but they don't believe that, and I can understand why they don't believe that, because it's principally coming from me. But so it might be nice to have someone else give an objective. Mine's subjective. There always could be. We do have Ralph Packer, as I said. He is able to take whatever he wants to by containerized cargo, break bulk cargo. We've had that discussion, and maybe there's a private person who would be willing to do that. But I don't know exactly how much he would take and what the efficiency of that operation would be, because you need a large amount to fill up a barge, and how long does it take to accumulate for a barge load? I just don't know that information.
He did express that he could store enough on his property until it accumulated to the point he was ready to go on the barge.
Right, that was for the solid waste, correct? Yep.
Right.
Those were the bales, and that was on his Vineyard Haven property, he mentioned.
Right.
So. But there are logistical problems for a barge operation. You have to break it down, so there are labor and space costs on both sides. But that's why another aspect, pursuing grant applications, to me personally, thinks is a good idea, just to see. Have someone come in and take a look hopefully without any bias, as long as we aren't wed to whatever agendas they may have. As long as we're looking out for everyone's best interest in these communities.
Well, Doug, Steve, would that be a topic for our next meeting? Would be to follow up to Ed DeWitt's letter is what can we do as a long range transportation group to study what grants are available or what our next steps are there.
I'll put that on the list and see.
I don't know how Doug or
Yes,
Julian.
They actually did, the committee did actually do a lot of the research, and they named a couple of grant opportunities in the original email, I think, to you, Steve.
They did, but I was hoping for more specific contact information and more, it would be a discussion, I think probably between Ed and me about that. And I think it's sort of in an awkward situation because that's their recommendation that they will be making to the Falmouth Select Board to give to us as the Steamship Authority. So by May 13th, which is their next meeting, I assume they will vote to make that recommendation to the Falmouth Select Board, and but Ed and I can probably get started on it before it officially goes to the Select Board and you either adopt that recommendation or not. I don't know.
So then we wouldn't see it until the 26th at the earliest, because
You're
we
right.
have a meeting on the 10th and the 26th.
So.
Yeah.
But it's a good idea, and we invited Ed as soon as we heard about it in the first place, without it being formally presented. So we're just trying to move ahead because we know these are important issues.
I think if you sent an email to Ed, he would certainly relay that back of whatever he has.
Right. So, but that's one potential subject, and status of New Bedford is another. And as we did the last time, the Thursday at 4:30 is usually good, except when they have a Martha's Vineyard Commission Executive Committee meeting. And so I will just leave the date open for when we can get participants to come to the meeting, if that's all right with you.
Sounds good.
Works.
Good for me too.
Okay.
So you're saying it'll be May,
Well, it's not going to be April. It could be May or early June.
okay.
And we have public input.
I don't know if May 27th is a good day.
Holiday weekend.
No,
Yes.
that's my birthday and it is a holiday. I don't work on my birthday.
We'll take that into account. And may we wish you all happy birthday. All of us are wishing you happy birthday in advance.
Thank you.
Leon, what's the date?
May 27th.
Mine's the
I-
26th.
Try to remember.
When I work for a living, I would actually take that day off from work. I declared it a holiday.
Yeah, because it's Memorial Day weekend. I've had May 26th, and I've always taken that long weekend. I really do.
So, yeah. Well,
Public
Memorial
input.
Day weekend this year's the 24th. No, it's the 31st this year. Wow, it's late.
No one has submitted anything in the chat. So I'm going to assume that's all there is for public comment. That's normally the way people submit public input, if that's all
Right.
right with the rest of you.
Yeah.
So I will take a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second,
Second,
Mr.
I'll
Braithwaite.
give it to Doug.
Okay.
Brathwaite, aye.
Okay,
Score.
Mr. Brown,
Brown, aye.
Mr. Cahill,
Cahill, aye.
Mr. Chatnover,
Chad aye. Thanks, everyone.
and
Thank you.
Mr.
Jeff.
Suso.
So I thank you also.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Great.
Have a seat.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.